Quick pre-fight video on Arthur Abraham versus Martin Murray. For me, November is a stellar month in boxing. We've kind of had Rocky Fielding, Callum Smith. At the end of the month, we've got Tyson Fury versus Vladimir Klitschko. As we know, there's Canelo Alvarez versus Miguel Cotto. You've got a whole load of other boxing action coming up in December, including Chris Eubank Jr. versus Spike, Anthony Joshua versus Dillian White. As a result, this fight has kind of fallen under the radar ever so slightly. But it's an interesting matchup. Martin Murray, he's kind of been a guy I've always viewed as a good, solid operator who is likely going to fall one short at the top level. Maybe unfairly, I've kind of lumped in Martin Murray with a group of British fighters who I kind of think of as hyped by their promoters but are possibly less relevant worldwide. So I've kind of hyped him with the likes of Tony Bellew, Paul Smith, Matthew Macklin, Anthony Crolla, those sort of operators. The guys who are good British champions, could potentially be European champions, but in my mind are somewhat sort of the world championship level. I know with Martin Murray, he had debatable fights against Sergio Martinez, against Felix Sturm, where it could be argued that he was unlucky not to have won a version of the World Championship on those occasions. We saw him perform with credit against Golovkin. I think he went 11 rounds with Golovkin, and he did some pretty good work in that fight. He showed some decent capability. I must say Martin Murray outperformed in that fight my expectations, because Martin Murray, we've seen him fight a few sort of international opponent types on Sky, etc., and he's looked really poor against them in my opinion. He's looked really clumsy, looked like he's kind of smothering his own work, and didn't really show the gap in class that I expected. So I was quite surprised how well he did against Golovkin, and some of the punches he landed were actually quite good. I mean, Sky are making out that the move to 168 has been a great thing for him. I'm not so sure. He's knocked out a few very, very low-level opponents. Whether that means the move up is a good thing, I don't know. Martin Murray certainly isn't a power puncher. Don't let any Sky commentator convince you of that. And I kind of think he got by at 160 by being a relatively skilled boxer, a relatively capable operator, but above all that by being a big, strong, tough guy. And I just wonder if he's going to lose that natural advantage up at 168. A guy like Arthur Abraham's got an excellent chin. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's a very, very experienced pro. Martin Murray's power is going to seem light to him. Martin Murray's not going to hurt Arthur Abraham. Abraham, he's beatable. We saw Paul Smith give him problems. To me, he's some way below the very top of the division. I know Andre Ward's moved up, but you'd pick the Andre Wards, you'd pick the James De Gales of this world to get a win over him. Fundamentally, the thing about Arthur Abraham is another guy who, he actually was a very big puncher at 160, and he's known as a big puncher, but for me, he's lost that moving up in weight, and he's actually less effective at 168. But what Abraham's done is really perfected his style. He keeps his hands very high, very rigid. He keeps a good guard. Defensively, he's relatively sound just by doing the basics well. And what he kind of tends to do, and we saw this in the Paul Smith fights, is he doesn't throw a lot. He's relatively low volume, but he's quite accurate, and his punches are quite eye-catching when he does throw. He throws volleys and rallies of punches that look fairly hard, and certainly look harder than what Paul Smith is throwing back. I think in many ways his style has been perfected to attract the eye of German judges. We've seen him in trilogies with Stieglitz, and we've seen him take a lot of fights out there, obviously with the Sauerland promoters. And I kind of see him as a guy who stayed clear of the big challenges. Sauerland promotes or has promoted Mikhail Kessler. They have promoted George Groves, etc. But he's rather fought the Stieglitzes and the Paul Smiths and the Martin Murrays of this world. And I just think he trades on fighting lesser punchers like Paul Smith, like Stieglitz, like Martin Murray. And the German judges tend to like it when you're seeing hard punches, when you're seeing those eye-catching punches, they're not necessarily about quantity. To my eyes, they're not going to like what Paul Smith did. They're not going to like the jab, 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 back foot, back foot, back foot. They're more going to like it when someone puts the pedal to the metal a bit, and that's what Arthur Abraham does. And he's perfected a style of not taking much, throwing some eye-catching punches, keeping his hands high, and beating this level of opposition. And Martin Murray fits this mould well. You know, Martin Murray is a classic Arthur Abraham victim, if you like. The question for me is, can Martin Murray raise his game again? Is he one of those fighters here who can step up when he fights a higher level of opposition? Because his Gennady Golovkin performance suggests that. You know, he pulled out arguably a career best win in his defeat, and a career best performance in his defeat in that fact. So I wonder if he does the same, because Arthur Abraham can be outboxed. You know, if you're someone who shows excellent lateral movement, if you're someone who can, adopt volume combinations, you can certainly outbox Arthur Abraham. I mean, Carl Froch, for example, arguably his finest actual boxing display was when he outpointed Arthur Abraham that night. And Carl Froch is hardly known as this sort of elite level technician or elite level mover. So it can be done. You know, Martin Murray is not out of the fight here. I guess my worry is Martin Murray going to be able to hurt Arthur Abraham? No. Is Martin Murray going to land punches that are really eye-catching? Probably not. And is this going to be Arthur Abraham walking forward with his hands high, throwing volleys of hooks and, you know, combinations, and bringing the pace so that Martin Murray's forced on his back foot? And will the German judges go for that over and over and over again? And I think the answer is probably. It doesn't surprise me if this is a close fight on the scorecards, because Martin Murray does have a jab. Martin Murray can fight with volume. Martin Murray can box on the back foot. He can move laterally. He can do some of the things that can cause Arthur Abraham problems. But I just don't see him having the snap, the eye-catching work, the power to really affect Arthur Abraham and to really catch the eye of the judges. I would predict Arthur Abraham is to win on points. Again, doesn't surprise me if it's controversial, but Arthur Abraham is a master at getting the decision in these kind of fights, and I just see Martin Murray as someone who again and again and again comes up ever so slightly short at the top level. And whether Arthur Abraham's the top level or not, debatable. But he's probably a similar level to Felix Sturm, who Martin Murray came up against, if not a slightly higher level than Felix Sturm. So it's an interesting fight. I think win, lose or draw, Martin Murray still has a future in the super middleweight division. In Britain at present, we've got the return of George Groves to look forward to. We've got the rise of Callum Smith. You know, there are still fights for Martin Murray out there if he was to lose this. But what I would say is another failed world title opportunity. You know, every cat's only got 9 lives. Let me know your thoughts on this. How do you see it going? Am I oversimplifying this? Can Martin Murray pull something out of the bag to get rid of Arthur Abraham? Can the step up to 168 really pay that much dividend to Martin Murray? Let me know your thoughts. Many thanks for watching.